The blizzard had rolled in fast. Angry clouds twisting above the pines, snow slashing sideways like shards of glass. You couldn't hear much past the wind, but if you listened hard enough, you might have caught the distant, broken sound of a woman crying. Her name was Etta Hollis, and she'd once been the pride of her father's ranch. Proud, wild, smarter than most men, but that was before her kin were run off their land, before her uncle's debts caught up with them, and before she trusted the wrong man. She'd gone riding with Lyle Draper, thinking he meant to ask for her hand. Instead, he took her into the mountains and left her there with a busted lip, empty saddlebag, and no horse. He said it was better than what the men he owed would do. For hours, Etta had wandered through the white abyss, her fingers too cold to feel, her boots soaked through. The sky darkened, the snow thickened, then her legs gave out. She collapsed beneath a bent pine, eyes barely open, lips cracked and trembling. She whispered, "Don't let me die out here." 3 miles down the mountain, Wyatt Callan sat silent in his cabin. A fire burned low in the hearth. He hadn't spoken to anyone in 2 weeks, not since burying his brother, who'd never come back from that rustler's shootout. Wyatt wasn't a man of many words. Folks called him Ghost Cowboy behind his back. But when he looked out the frost-lined window and saw movement, just a flicker of red against the snow, his boots were on and rifle slung. Before thought even caught up, he saddled Moses, his old gray Mustang, and rode into the storm like a shadow with purpose. Etta didn't remember hearing hoofbeats, only the sharp sting of something pulling her up, something warm and rough wrapping around her body, then the press of a man's chest against her back as she was lifted onto a saddle. Her body was limp, her voice barely a breath. "Please, don't let me go." "I won't," Wyatt finally said. It was the first thing he'd spoken out loud in days. Back at the cabin, he stoked the fire high, stripped her wet clothes off with respectful urgency, and wrapped her in every quilt he had. Her skin was like marble. He sat beside her all night, holding her hand, feeding her sips of broth. She drifted in and out of sleep, dreaming of horses and lightning and her mama's voice. By dawn, the worst had passed. Her fever broke. When she opened her eyes, Wyatt was seated near the fire, stitching a tear in her coat. He looked up, said nothing, but nodded once. "You saved me," she whispered. He shrugged. Wasn't about to let the cold win. In the days that followed, she regained strength. He never asked about who did it. He didn't need to. The bruises on her jaw, the silence in her eyes told enough. What he did ask was simple. "You got somewhere to go?" Etta shook her head. "Then stay, until you do." Spring came late in the mountains that year, and by the time the snow finally melted, Wyatt and Etta had settled into a rhythm, quiet, warm, and slow, like healing. She'd cook while he chopped wood. He'd teach her to shoot straighter. Sometimes she'd find him just watching her from the porch, hat tipped low, eyes soft. One morning, as she saddled Moses to ride into town, she turned and asked, "You ever gonna tell me why you came up that hill in the middle of a storm?" Wyatt leaned against the post, arms folded. "I heard someone calling," he said simply. Etta blinked. "I didn't yell. I could barely breathe." He looked at her, steady and quiet. "You didn't have to." The snow had mostly melted by the time Etta could saddle a horse again. Her strength had returned slowly. First her voice, then her balance, then her will. Wyatt never rushed her. He'd always been a man of stillness. Steady. Solid. Each morning, she'd wake to the smell of coffee and fresh-cut wood. Each evening, they sat on the porch wrapped in quilts, saying little, watching the treetops sway under the last of winter's wind. But peace doesn't hold forever. Not in these parts. One night, a knock broke the silence. Wyatt opened the door with his rifle at his side. A boy, barely 14, stood shivering on the steps. "You Wyatt Callan?" The boy's voice trembled. "They're coming. 3 men. Looking for a girl with a scar on her jaw." Etta froze. Her hand instinctively touched the faded bruise beneath her cheekbone. "Where?" Wyatt asked. "Couple miles back. I heard 'em at the trading post. They got blood in their eyes." Wyatt turned to Etta, his face unreadable. She didn't flinch. "I'm not running again," she said. "You're not," he replied. The next morning, Wyatt led Etta to the barn. "You remember what I taught you?" Etta nodded and took the shotgun from the wall. Her fingers were steady. "Stay behind the hearth if I tell you to. No hesitation." "I won't." Her eyes didn't leave his. "But I'm not hiding." When they came, it was just past dusk. 3 horses, 3 shadows in dusters. Lyle Draper at the center, smiling like the devil in church. "Well, well, you sure took your time bleeding out, Etta," he sneered, stepping off his horse. "Didn't think you had it in you." Wyatt stepped onto the porch, rifle already raised. "She ain't yours." "She ain't yours either," Lyle said, grinning. "She's a debt." Behind Wyatt, the cabin door opened. Etta stepped out slowly, shotgun in hand. "I'm not a debt," she said calmly. "I'm a reckoning." What happened next was over in less than a minute. A shout. 2 shots. The sound of a horse bolting. A final thud. When the smoke cleared, Lyle Draper lay crumpled in the dirt, blood soaking into the thawing earth. The other 2 had ridden off fast and frightened. Etta stood frozen, barrel still smoking, breath caught halfway between terror and relief. Wyatt stepped beside her and gently lowered the shotgun. "It's over." Etta looked up at him, tears welling in her eyes. It's just beginning. Epilogue. That spring, the land began to bloom again. Etta planted flowers along the cabin's edge. Wyatt built her a saddle of her own. The boy who brought the warning came back and stayed, helping with the cattle, learning to shoot, calling Etta ma'am, and Wyatt sir. And though neither of them said it aloud, something had grown between them stronger than bullets or blood. One quiet evening, as dusk painted the sky in gold, Wyatt took her hand and said the only 3 words he truly needed. "You're safe now." By summer, the cabin on Bitter Ridge no longer looked like a place for hiding. Etta planted a line of corn beside the porch. Wyatt fixed the old well pump. The boy, Noah, they'd learned, became family in the way that mattered most. Unspoken loyalty. A trio forged by frost, fear, and fire. The world outside their little patch of peace, however, hadn't forgotten them. It began with a letter. No stamp, no return name. Just scrawled words on rough parchment. "Lyle had brothers. We're coming for what he didn't collect." Etta's hands trembled as she read it aloud. Wyatt stood by the door, silent. "You think they mean it?" Noah asked. Wyatt didn't answer. He just folded the note once, placed it in the stove, and watched it burn. The 3 of them prepared quietly. Wyatt carved out new shooting lanes through the trees. Etta practiced daily, firing until her shoulder ached. Noah was taught to whistle, sharp and loud, if he saw riders approach. Still, they hoped. Still, they tried to live. One afternoon, Etta wandered down to the stream alone. She needed space, away from the shadow of threats, away from Wyatt's heavy silence. She knelt by the water, washing her hands, when she heard a twig snap. She rose slowly, reaching for her knife. But the figure that stepped from the trees wasn't armed, wasn't even a man. A woman, older, hair tied back, eyes sunken with sorrow, stood there. "You Etta Hollis?" she asked. Etta nodded warily. The woman removed a locket from around her neck and held it out. "I was Lyle's mother." Etta didn't move. "I didn't come to beg, and I didn't come to curse you," the woman said. "I came to tell you, my sons are coming, not just for revenge, for blood, and when they do, they won't stop at you." She looked toward the ridge. "They'll burn this whole place down." That night, Etta told Wyatt everything. "She warned us," Etta said. "We still have time to run." Wyatt didn't look at her, just stared into the fire. "We've run enough," he said. "And I've buried enough." Etta stepped close, resting her hand on his shoulder. "Then let's end it. Together." The last stand. They came 4 days later. 4 men, masked, with fire in their eyes and rifles on their backs. Wyatt waited on the front porch, rifle in hand. Etta was at the barn. Noah in the loft with the whistle and pistol. It was brutal. It was fast. One attacker tried circling wide. Noah whistled, and Wyatt cut him down. Another came straight on and was met by Etta's buckshot. The third made it to the cabin, lit a torch, but Wyatt struck him down with the butt of his rifle. The last one, Reed Draper, Lyle's oldest brother, faced Etta in the barn. They fought hard, he with a knife, she with a broken pitchfork. He cornered her, raised his blade. But Wyatt appeared behind him, silent as always, and whispered, "She ain't yours either," then pulled the trigger. 1 year later, the cabin still stood. The barn had new beams. The scars had faded, but not the memories. Etta tended the flowers now without looking over her shoulder. Wyatt spoke more, smiled sometimes. Noah had his own rifle now and called Wyatt Pa when he thought no one heard. And one morning, just before sunrise, Etta stood on the porch and looked out over the field, her hand resting gently on her growing belly. "Wyatt," she said softly. He stepped beside her. She looked up. "We made it." He placed a hand on hers. "We keep making it." And together, they watched the world rise quiet and golden around them.